Hello everyone, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will show you my new Poinsettia Blooms die from my Yana's Delightful Christmas collection with Spellbinders. I have already shared several videos featuring my new collection, different products, and how-tos. And in this video, I want to focus on the Poinsettia Blooms die. So this is the only die in this collection. It is pretty large and it consists of two dies. If you are familiar with my previous collections with Spellbinders, you might already have some of my products. So this die is very similar to the dies we released previously. So if you have anemone blooms or magnolia blooms, this die works in a similar way. So there are two dies in this die set, a shadow die and a main die. I like to use the shadow die to die cut a layer from vellum, or I often skip using the shadow layer and I just use the main die. But you do have the option to use them together, or you can use just the main die by itself. The main die cuts several pieces for you, an outline, and you see a gold outline that I have here. And it will also cut petals. So the petals are the little dropouts, the little negative pieces, but you actually want to keep the petals and you can inlay them back into your poinsettia to create one beautiful, stunning flower. So here I have one piece that I started working on. I haven't finished it yet, but I basically die cut the poinsettia layer from white cardstock and I colored the petals, or actually these are leaves. I colored the leaves using my alcohol markers. I then planned to layer the gold die cut on top to create this beautiful bloom. And I'll show you how this is done. It's very easy to do. You will love the process. I like to die cut my poinsettias so that the petals or the leaves do not fall out. Now, this is a very detailed die, and in some cases, it doesn't cut all the way through, and it's actually the way we intended, the way we designed this die, because when I cut it, I want the petals or the leaves to stay in place. I don't want them to move. Now, again, depending on your die cutting machine, you might have no problem cutting through all of the layers, and have all of the leaves and petals pop out and drop out. It is a pain to then later inlay them. So what I have done, what I like to do is I like to add thickness to my cardstock, and I do that by adding a layer of masking paper from the back of my main panel. So here I have a sheet of Nina Solar White. This is 80-pound cardstock, and I'm adding a sheet of masking paper from the back. So this is just adding thickness to my paper. And this forces, in a way, it forces my die to not cut through all of the layers. So I've used my Platinum 6 die cutting machine and I die cut this layer. Now, different papers also cut differently. The Mere Gold, Mere Silver, and other specialty metallic papers, they cut beautifully. But if I'm using cardstock, regular cardstock, white or colored, that cuts a little bit different. So here I have my die cut poinsettia, and as you can see, all of the leaves are staying in place. Now, if you feel that some of the leaves are becoming loose and are about to fall out, you can flip your die cut to the back and add some low-tech tape from the back. Here I added strips of our best ever craft tape just to make sure that everything is going to stay put. Now, I've also cut another layer from pink cardstock, and this is another option for you. So you can either start with a white cardstock panel and add color to it using your alcohol markers, or you can start with a colored cardstock panel and do ink blending. Of course, you can also do ink blending on white cardstock. So here I did a little bit of experimentation and I tried using different blending brushes, different techniques, and also different colors of ink. I started with some pink inks from Simon Says Stamp, and I just blended my piece as is. Now, this wasn't giving me the best results. I didn't like how, as I was blending one petal, I was adding color to another petal. So I thought about what could I do to make it easier. So I went back to one of my previous die cuts and I used the die cut leaves as masks. Now, this is a tedious process because you kind of have to mask the two petals or the two leaves that are next to the leaf and petal that you want to blend. So it's not the best, it's not ideal, but it is a way to do it. And like I said, I wanted to share some of the ways that this die cut can be used. This gave me another idea. I realized that I was able to pop the individual die cut out, ink blend it without touching the neighboring sections, and then pop it back in. That became a much better, a much easier process. So I die cut this piece again from pink cardstock. This is Peony from Hero Arts. And I picked different colors of ink. So I have Watermelon and Merlot from Simon Says Stamp because I wanted to add red ink blending to this poinsettia. I popped an individual section and I started ink blending by first adding the lighter red ink and then using a different brush to add a darker red ink. I first used these Simon Says Stamp blending brushes. I have them in various sizes, and I also have a bunch of those. And those are typically the brushes that I use. But I then remembered that Spellbinders recently released new brushes. Actually, they now have detail blending brushes for stenciling. And I recently received a sample pack in the mail, and I was very anxious to try them. So here I have my set of these Spellbinders brushes. So one pack comes with 3 brushes and you have 3 different sizes. So a large, medium, and small. And I use the large and medium brushes here to ink blend those die cuts. Again, I started with the lighter red, loaded up my brush, and mind you, this is my first time using these brushes. I didn't know if I was going to like them or not, but I absolutely loved blending with them. In fact, I loved them more than my Simon Says Stamp brushes, and I'm generally pretty happy with my Simon Says Stamp brushes, but these, I did enjoy using them more for blending these small detail sections. I had more control. I was able to add less ink or more intense ink. And overall, I just had a better blending experience when I was using these brushes. So after I ink blended each of the sections, of course, that did take quite a lot of time, but I did enjoy this process. So after I ink blended each of the petals, or while I was ink blending them, I put them back, I inlaid them into my main die cut. I first had that main piece cut from white cardstock as I was planning to have a white poinsettia outline, but I later changed my mind several times and my outline changed to green, and then it finally changed to gold because I happen to like gold the most, and I stick with it all the time. So here I also tried die cutting this piece from green cardstock. This is Spellbinders Peridot. And again, I blended ink onto it to add some color variation. So here I blended 2 shades of green because I wanted to see if I could add green leaves onto my die cut. And I was able to do so, but I didn't add just the green leaves. I added an entire green die cut. So the poinsettia outline became green as well. That's an option for you. I didn't quite like that. It was not typical for me. Maybe it was a little bit too weird for my taste, but it certainly does look nice, especially with those green leaves. And if you are ink blending, you can also ink blend the berries in different colors. So you have that option. Now, another way I love using this die is I love die cutting it from white cardstock, as I showed you at the beginning of this video. So here we have this white die cut with the masking paper added from the back. And here I'm using my Copic markers, or you can use any other alcohol markers, or your favorite coloring medium to color each section. So here I'm going with a light, medium, and dark, and I'm coloring each leaf one by one, creating highlights and shadows and shaping each of those sections. I love doing this. It does take quite a bit of time, again, because we have several petals here and we are coloring each petal, one petal at a time, but I think the result is so beautiful. It is absolutely worth it. Now with the coloring done, I like to cut this piece out. So I don't need the little extra die cuts. I don't need the berries. I don't need the other leaves. I just need the red poinsettia. So I use my scissors and I snap the excess die cut off. And then I just add here a gold outline, a gold die cut outline on top, and that finishes my poinsettia. It looks absolutely beautiful. It looks amazing on cards. The size of this flower is perfect for an A2 card. You can have one flower or you can combine several flowers. And you have yourself a beautiful either focal point for your card or a beautiful background. I tried using this die cut in several different ways to show you all of the different things that you can do with it, but I'm sure you will come up with additional ideas. So here's that red poinsettia, all nice and finished. Again, love the way that this turned out. And here's also the pink poinsettia that was ink blended, that was first die cut from pink cardstock and ink blended using the red inks. Now let's take a look at some of the cards I have for you featuring this die set. So for the first project, I used the Poinsettia Blooms to create a partial background. You can of course use this die to create a full background for your card. Here I added 3 partial flowers. That's actually just 2 die cuts cut into pieces. So I created a partial background, and the background is basically going from the top to the bottom of my card. And then I have a beautiful foiled sentiment at the bottom. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. I also added a strip of red cardstock at the very bottom, and this card base, the card base for this card is actually made from red cardstock. So when you open it, you have the beautiful pop of red on the inside. My next card uses the poinsettia as an accent. So even though this is a pretty large die, you can cut it and use sections of this die to make it smaller. I foiled the Be Joyful plate without the foliage, and then I just added the poinsettia around it to frame the sentiment, to frame that focal Be Joyful. I also added some white pearls to some of the leaves, and that turned out beautiful. Now, the last card I have for you for today is the most simple one. It uses the poinsettia along with a simple sentiment. So I die cut a poinsettia, I colored it, and then I added a foiled and die cut sentiment on top. Now, all of these cards were created in the traditional red, white, and gold color scheme, but I encourage you to try and use other colors for your poinsettias. The poinsettias come in so many different colors. You know, you can do pink, you can do white, you can probably do burgundy and things like that. So have fun, create, and tag me. I'd love to see what you guys are making with my products. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Love you, and I'll see you next time.